When it comes to matters of the heart, navigating the delicate balance between desire and fear can be one of the most challenging aspects of a relationship. For someone who deeply wants to connect with you but is scared of making a mistake, their actions can be confusing, unpredictable, and often contradictory. You might sense that he's interested, yet there's a constant emotional distance. At times, he's warm, attentive, and affectionate, but then he retreats, acting distant or aloof. It can leave you wondering, why is he acting this way? Or does he truly want me? Or am I reading too much into his behavior? The reality is, when someone is afraid of making a mistake in a relationship, their fear can often become a barrier to expressing their true feelings. These individuals are usually deeply emotional, but incredibly cautious when it comes to opening up and being vulnerable. They don't want to risk scaring you away, and they certainly don't want to rush into something that could lead to heartbreak or disappointment. At the core of their behavior is the desire to protect both themselves and the person they care about. But ironically, this overcautiousness can sometimes push people away instead of drawing them closer. This fear of making a mistake isn't something unique to men, but it's particularly prevalent in relationships where they feel a strong emotional connection. The idea of getting it wrong can create such internal conflict that it leads them to hold back, avoid tough conversations, and play it safe. He might worry that any misstep, whether it's saying the wrong thing, making the wrong move, or rushing into something too fast, could ruin everything. As a result, he overthinks his every action and word, second-guessing himself at every turn. At times, this emotional war can lead to him coming across as distant or disinterested, even though that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, his actions are more a reflection of his deep care for you than his disinterest. The deeper the connection, the more fearful he becomes of damaging it. This can lead him to avoid discussing future plans, hold back on physical affection, or be slow to reveal his true feelings. It's not because he doesn't care about you. He cares so much that he's afraid of losing you, and is uncertain about how to take the next step without making a mistake. In relationships, we often see this kind of behavior as mixed signals or indecisiveness. We might think he's not interested, or we might feel frustrated by his reluctance to open up. But understanding the fear behind his actions can help you approach the situation with patience and empathy. If he's holding back, it's not a sign that he doesn't want you. It's a sign that he's scared of moving too fast, of pushing too hard, or of expressing his feelings in a way that could drive you away. This article will explore the signs that a person wants you but is afraid of making a mistake. From the subtle signs of overthinking and second-guessing to the more noticeable behaviors like avoiding serious conversations about the future, we'll look at the ways these fears manifest and how they can affect your relationship. Understanding these signs will help you navigate the complexities of emotional investment and give you insight into the mind of someone who truly cares but is unsure of how to move forward without making a misstep. 1. He's always second-guessing himself around you. When someone is scared of making a mistake, especially in a relationship, it leads to constant self-doubt and second-guessing. For him, every action and word is scrutinized, creating a barrier to natural conversation. He often finds himself wondering, did I say the right thing? Or was that comment too much? This anxiety causes him to be overly cautious in his behavior, even if his feelings for you are strong. He's aware of how much he values your connection, so he doesn't want to ruin anything by saying the wrong thing. This behavior may show up in subtle ways: frequent pauses in conversations, a long delay before responding to a text, or a hesitant tone. It's not that he's uninterested or doesn't have anything to say, but is afraid that his words might be misinterpreted. He could also avoid making decisions, whether small or big, fearing that the wrong move might drive you away. This chronic second-guessing can make him seem indecisive, but in reality, it's just a fear of making mistakes. While this kind of self-doubt is a sign of emotional investment, it can also be exhausting for him. He's trying to balance being himself while also being aware of the potential consequences of every interaction. Sometimes, this causes him to hold back, not because he doesn't want to get closer to you, but because he's terrified of the repercussions of messing things up. The more invested he is, the more pressure he feels to avoid missteps. The result is an overly cautious approach to everything, from casual conversations to more meaningful discussions about the future. 2. He overthinks every word he says to you. Overthinking is another major sign that he's afraid of making a mistake. If he's always rethinking the things he says, it's a clear indicator that he values how you perceive him. He's not the type to casually toss out words or jokes without thinking about how they might affect you. Each sentence he says is calculated, and even innocent comments are filtered through the lens of potential consequences. This overanalysis of every conversation can lead to him sounding guarded or distant, not because he's not interested, but because he's too concerned with not saying the wrong thing. For example, after talking to you, he may replay the conversation in his mind over and over, wondering if he said something that might have been taken the wrong way. He could spend hours thinking about how his word came across, worrying that he didn't express himself clearly or that his comment might have inadvertently hurt you. He'll second-guess even compliments or flirty remarks, wondering if they came across as too much, too little, or just wrong. His overthinking makes him more cautious, often leaving him silent or avoiding deeper conversations about his feelings. This tendency to overthink is tied to his deep desire to protect your connection. His fear of making a mistake stems from not wanting to jeopardize the possibility of a relationship. But ironically, overthinking can sometimes create emotional distance. He might avoid expressing his true feelings, leading to frustration or confusion on your part. He might seem reserved or overly cautious, even though his heart is telling him to open up. The key is that this overthinking comes from a place of caring too much, and it's often a self-protective mechanism against potential rejection or miscommunication. 3. He avoids talking about his feelings for you. Talking about emotions can be incredibly difficult for someone who fears making a mistake. When he likes you but is scared of messing things up, opening up about his feelings might feel like walking on a tightrope. He's afraid that if he expresses his true emotions too soon, it might scare you away or make the situation awkward. Even though he may have strong feelings for you, he's hesitant to voice them because of the potential consequences. This could manifest in his reluctance to engage in conversations about the future or any talk about his personal emotions. If you mention something about relationships or feelings, he may divert the topic or give vague, non-committal responses. Is likely to act as though he's fine, even when deep down he may feel strongly for you. It's not because he doesn't care, but because he doesn't know how to share his vulnerability without risking rejection. His hesitation to talk about his feelings is rooted in the fear of making things awkward or rushing into something he isn't sure of yet. This avoidance doesn't mean he isn't emotionally invested. In fact, it often signals the opposite. He's emotionally overwhelmed but doesn't want to misstep. The fear of saying the wrong thing, or of pushing too hard for a deeper connection too soon, can make him retreat into silence. The reality is that he's likely waiting for a sign from you, whether it's a gesture, a word, or just the right moment, to feel safe enough to express his true emotions. His avoidance is really a shield to protect himself from emotional harm and from making a mistake that could alter your dynamic. 4. He gives mixed signals and acts distant. One of the most confusing signs that he wants you but is scared of making a mistake is giving mixed signals. When someone is emotionally invested but unsure about how to proceed, they often oscillate between being warm and distant. He might show interest by texting you or making plans, but then, out of nowhere, he becomes distant or unresponsive. This push-and-pull behavior can be incredibly frustrating and confusing because, on the surface, it appears that he's interested, but his actions seem to contradict his feelings. The mixed signals are a defense mechanism. He's genuinely interested in you but doesn't know how to balance his feelings with his fear of messing things up. When he gets too close, he might back away as a way to protect himself from potential hurt. This can manifest in him avoiding physical intimacy, not being as responsive in conversations, or pulling back emotionally. He may even avoid deeper conversations or limit his personal disclosures because he's afraid of being too vulnerable too soon. This back-and-forth behavior can be interpreted as disinterest, but in reality, it's just his fear of making the wrong move. One moment, he may be fully engaged and affectionate, only to distance himself the next. The unpredictability of his behavior stems from his internal struggle, wanting to move forward with you, but fearing the consequences of making a misstep. He might push you away to avoid feeling too exposed, even though he desires a deeper connection. The mixed signals are often his way of testing the waters, seeing how much you're willing to invest in him before he takes the plunge. 5. He's extra careful not to push you away. When someone is afraid of making a mistake in a relationship, they often take a cautious approach, going out of their way to avoid doing anything that could push the other person away. He may be hyper-aware of his behavior and always careful not to say or do anything that could be perceived as too much, too soon, or inappropriate. Whether it's waiting too long to text you back or being overly polite and reserved in his interactions, he's walking on eggshells to make sure that he doesn't inadvertently create distance between the two of you. He's aware of the fine line between expressing his feelings and overwhelming you, which makes him hesitant to be too forward. His desire to be close to you is strong, but his fear of scaring you away is even stronger. He might overcompensate by being overly respectful or giving you space when he wants to be closer. This careful balance comes from a fear of rejection or of being seen as too eager, which could make you pull away from him. This behavior can make him seem distant or less interested than he actually is. He's not trying to avoid you or push you away. Rather, he's trying to navigate the relationship without doing anything that could be seen as overbearing. His efforts to be cautious can make him come across as reserved, or even like he's not fully invested. But in reality, he's just trying to protect the connection by being careful about his actions. 6. He hesitates to take things to the next level. Taking things to the next level in a relationship is a huge step, and for someone who is afraid of making a mistake, it can feel like a daunting leap. He may show a lot of interest and affection but still hesitate when it comes to deepening the connection. Whether it's about making things official, becoming more physically intimate, or discussing future plans together. This hesitation is rooted in a deep fear of making the wrong decision or moving too fast. He might constantly find reasons to delay, even when everything seems to be going well. This could look like avoiding serious talks about the future, putting off discussions about labels or commitment, or taking longer than expected to introduce you to his friends or family. It's not that he doesn't want to progress. Rather, he's caught in a mental loop, thinking through the potential consequences of taking that next step. He's terrified that if he moves too quickly, it could end badly, or that you might not be on the same page. This hesitance to move forward is often a reflection of how much he values the connection. The more he cares, the more pressure he feels to get it right. He doesn't want to rush into anything that could jeopardize what you already have, so he takes his time, carefully weighing each decision. Unfortunately, this cautious approach can sometimes be misinterpreted as disinterest or indecision, when in fact, it's a sign of him trying to avoid making a mistake that could hurt the relationship in the long run. 7. He tries to please you but never wants to overdo it. When a person is afraid of making a mistake, especially in the early stages of a relationship, they might go out of their way to please you. However, their fear of overdoing it and coming across as too eager or pushy holds them back from fully expressing themselves. He'll be kind, considerate, and attentive, but there's a fine line he's always walking, trying not to go overboard. He may give you compliments, buy thoughtful gifts, or show extra care, but it will always be done with the awareness that he doesn't want to overwhelm you. The underlying reason for this behavior is his fear of rejection. He's worried that if he goes too far too fast, it might make you uncomfortable or seem insincere. While his gestures come from a genuine place, he's cautious, fearing that he might be too much. He's likely read about how to be the right amount of attentive in relationships, but he still feels the constant pressure of trying to get it just right. This can make him seem a little distant or too reserved at times, as he wants to balance being affectionate without pushing too hard. Despite his desire to make you happy, he's constantly self-monitoring, checking his actions, and sometimes holding back. He wants to avoid the risk of coming across as overbearing. So instead of allowing himself to be fully expressive, he may become more reserved, often waiting for your cues to know how to act. His intention is to be considerate and avoid overwhelming you. But this can lead to moments where you may feel he's not as open as you would like him to be. 8. He keeps his distance, even though he wants to be closer. When someone is emotionally invested but afraid of making a mistake, one common behavior is keeping a certain distance, even though they desire closeness. He may show interest in subtle ways, through small gestures or indirect communication. But when it comes to deeper connection or intimacy, he pulls back. This is a self-protective mechanism. He's afraid that if he gets too close too soon, it will be too much for you, or that he might say or do something that could ruin the relationship. The emotional distance he creates is not a sign of disinterest. In fact, it's often the opposite. It's a sign that he cares deeply but is holding himself back to avoid rushing into something. His reluctance to become too intimate or vulnerable is often rooted in fear of rejection or of exposing his true feelings. He may avoid physical closeness, such as holding hands or sharing personal stories, because he worries it will make things feel too serious too soon. This fear stems from wanting to keep things light and prevent any premature emotional investment that could lead to disappointment. This distance might also manifest as him being less expressive or showing less affection, even when he feels strongly about you. He's not trying to push you away, but rather, he's being careful. He's walking a fine line, attempting to maintain some emotional safety while still keeping his feelings intact. The tension between wanting to be closer and holding himself back can make him appear distant or emotionally unavailable, but deep down, he is simply protecting himself from the fear of making a mistake. 9. He hesitates to reveal personal information about himself. A significant sign that he wants you but is scared of making a mistake is his reluctance to share personal details about his life. While he might be open about surface-level topics, such as work or casual hobbies, he may shy away from discussing deeper subjects, like his past relationships, childhood, or dreams for the future. His hesitation comes from the fear that revealing too much too soon might push you away, or worse, cause you to lose interest in him. He may worry that opening up emotionally will expose vulnerabilities that are difficult for him to handle, especially if you don't respond the way he hopes. For instance, if he tells you something personal, he might fear that you'll judge him, or he may be concerned that it will complicate your relationship. The more invested he is in you, the more pressure he feels to keep his emotions in check and to avoid being too open too early. This lack of openness doesn't mean he doesn't trust you or value your connection. It's simply his way of managing the risks involved in emotional vulnerability. He's likely waiting for the right moment when he feels secure enough to share deeper parts of himself without the fear of rejection or misunderstanding. The hesitation is rooted in self-preservation. He wants to make sure that any emotional investment he makes is reciprocated and doesn't put him in an emotionally vulnerable position too soon. 10. He is nervous around you, but can't help his attraction. When someone is scared of making a mistake, the intensity of their attraction can actually make them more nervous around the person they like. If you notice that he seems uneasy or jittery when you're around, it's often a sign that he's highly aware of his feelings for you but is afraid to let them fully show. His nervousness comes from a place of vulnerability. He feels drawn to you but is unsure how to act without doing something that might make things awkward or ruin the connection. He may fidget, avoid eye contact, or appear unusually quiet, all signs of his inner turmoil. This is his way of trying to manage his intense emotions without overwhelming you. His nervousness isn't because he's disinterested. Quite the opposite. It's a reflection of his emotional investment. He's scared of saying or doing the wrong thing in front of you, which makes him second-guess his every move. Every time you speak or make eye contact, he may feel a rush of nervous energy, which can make him appear shy or distant. This nervousness is not a sign that he doesn't want to be with you. Rather, it's a sign that he cares deeply but fears the consequences of moving too fast or making a mistake. He's trying to contain his feelings while still being close to you, and that delicate balance often leads to moments of nervousness. His attraction is obvious, but his fear of vulnerability keeps him from fully expressing it, making him feel caught between wanting to connect and being afraid to mess things up. 11. He might back off after a closer connection. When you're forming a closer bond with someone, and they back off after a period of closeness, it's usually because they are scared of making a mistake. After spending time with you and connecting on a deeper level, he might pull back or become distant as a way of managing his emotional vulnerability. This happens because he fears that the deeper connection could lead to something he's not yet ready to handle, or that he might get too emotionally invested and end up hurt. This backing off isn't a reflection of his lack of interest. It's actually a sign of his emotional intensity. He may fear that if things get too close too quickly, it will feel like a loss of control, and he won't know how to maintain that closeness without making mistakes. Whether it's avoiding deeper conversations or spending less time together, he might need space to process his feelings and gather his courage. This behavior can be confusing because it feels like he's withdrawing just as things are becoming meaningful. However, it's more likely that he's trying to regain control over his emotions to avoid getting overwhelmed. He may struggle with balancing his desire for a connection with his fear of losing himself or getting hurt. His pulling away is a coping mechanism, not a rejection of you, but a way to protect his heart until he feels ready to take the next step forward without the fear of making a misstep. 12. He avoids talking about future plans with you. One of the clearest signs that someone is scared of making a mistake is their reluctance to talk about future plans, particularly when it comes to the relationship. If he's interested in you but doesn't want to risk things going wrong, he may hesitate to discuss plans or goals that involve both of you. Whether it's casual talk about vacations, long-term goals, or the idea of exclusivity, he will likely avoid these topics altogether. This avoidance is tied to his fear of getting ahead of himself. The more he cares about you, the more pressure he feels to make sure everything progresses in a certain way. He's afraid that if he brings up a future together too soon, it might come across as too forward or make you feel overwhelmed. The discussion of the future can trigger his fear of rejection, especially if he feels like he's moving too fast or asking for more than you're ready to give. The absence of conversations about future plans can make it seem like he's not committed or unsure about the relationship. However, the truth is that he's just trying to protect both himself and you from the pressure of having to decide on a future before he's confident that the relationship is solid enough to handle it. This hesitance is his way of keeping things light and comfortable while avoiding the risk of rushing into something that may not work out in the long run. 13. He worries about rejection more than you know. Rejection is one of the most painful experiences in a relationship, and for someone who's scared of making a mistake, the thought of being rejected can become an overwhelming fear. When a person is emotionally invested in someone but isn't sure how the other person feels, they often focus intensely on the possibility of rejection. Every word and action is scrutinized for signs that they might be pushing too hard or becoming too vulnerable too soon. This deep-seated fear often makes them hesitant to express their true feelings or take any risks in the relationship. He might hold back from saying what's really on his mind, even though he has strong feelings for you, because he's afraid that putting himself out there will lead to rejection. He could start second-guessing his actions, wondering if he's coming across as too eager or too emotional. His worry about being rejected can lead to overthinking or withdrawing at times, as he tries to protect himself from the sting of possible disappointment. He may even avoid situations where the risk of rejection feels higher, such as asking for a date or making things official. This fear of rejection isn't a reflection of how he feels about you, but rather a reflection of his own vulnerabilities. He's terrified of being hurt emotionally and is trying to avoid that at all costs. Unfortunately, this can sometimes make him appear distant or less interested when, in reality, he's just guarding his heart and protecting himself from the fear of rejection. 14. He struggles to be vulnerable with you. Vulnerability is a critical part of building emotional intimacy, but for someone who's scared of making a mistake, it can feel like a huge risk. When he's interested in you but hesitant to show his true self, it's often because he's terrified that being vulnerable will lead to emotional exposure, which might hurt him. Opening up means showing parts of himself that he might feel are unworthy of love or understanding, and is scared that if he does, it might push you away or leave him feeling exposed. He might hold back when it comes to talking about his emotions or his past, or he may avoid discussing topics that reveal his true thoughts and feelings. Instead of being open and honest, he may keep things light and superficial, sticking to topics that don't require deep emotional engagement. This is a defense mechanism. He is afraid that if he lets his guard down too much, he'll make himself vulnerable to rejection or judgment. The struggle to be vulnerable often stems from a fear of past wounds or failed relationships that have left him feeling insecure. He might have been hurt before, and now he's cautious about opening up to someone new. His inability to be vulnerable doesn't mean he doesn't care. It simply means that he's still navigating his fears. As much as he wants to get closer to you, his own emotional barriers make it difficult for him to take that step. 15. He doesn't want to rush things, but is also fearful of losing you. When someone is afraid of making a mistake in a relationship, they often err on the side of caution, afraid to rush into anything too quickly. However, this fear of moving too fast can sometimes conflict with their underlying desire to connect on a deeper level. He may be taking things slow because he wants to make sure that everything progresses naturally, but at the same time, he's terrified of losing the opportunity to be with you. This internal conflict can make him appear indecisive or unsure, when in reality, he's just trying to find the balance between giving the relationship the time it needs to develop and avoiding the risk of losing you in the process. His hesitance to move too quickly comes from a desire to build something solid and meaningful without rushing into things that could fall apart. But at the same time, his fear of not moving quickly enough might make him worry that he could miss his chance to fully be with you. This fear of losing you, combined with his reluctance to rush things, creates a tension where he's constantly weighing his options. On one hand, he wants to build trust and emotional security over time. On the other, he's afraid that being too slow will lead to missed opportunities. This makes him careful and strategic in his approach, but it can also cause confusion as he tries to navigate the relationship at a pace that feels comfortable for both of you.